Here's what I want to do. I want to give you an illustration about giving. I need everybody to get your wallets out real quick. Okay, get your wallet out. Get your wallet out. Go ahead and do that. I need to know, is there anybody in here, okay, that has $100, $100 bill, $100 bill right on you? Raise your hand if you have a $100 bill right on you. Anybody? You, right here. This guy's got a $100 bill, okay? We're going to do this illustration here. You're going to help me out. You coming with me? Okay, follow me. This is great. You're nervous now, aren't you? Right, yeah. Coming for you next. You have a $100 bill?
I do.
Yeah. What's your name?
Dustin Ramtire.
Dustin, nice to meet you. How long have you been coming to Grace?
Been about 3 years.
3 years? That's awesome. Let's give it up for Dustin, right? You have a $100 bill in there, right? Yeah. Question for you. You want to give it to me?
Sure.
Sweet, thanks. Illustration on giving, right there. I get to do this 3 times today. This is a fantastic day. Whew, there you go. There's your illustration on giving. Man, I'm glad he was here. Thank you. That's really good. And some of you are like, whew, man, glad he didn't call on me, right? That's crazy. Thinking about giving is close to the heart of God. It's a part of his nature and his character, right? The most famous Bible verse is, for God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. God loved you so much he gave his best to you. You can give and not be loving, but you can't love and not be giving. It's the essence of who a giver is. The problem is when we think about giving, we have the wrong mindset. Most of us, when we talk about giving, we view it kind of like tipping, right? I get a service, I go out to eat, whatever, and the waiter or the waitress, they serve me, and so then I tip them, right? I kind of throw in a few extra bucks based upon what I got out of the experience, right? And so we'll give a few bucks here and there, we'll help somebody in need here and there, and so we just kind of throw tips around, right? That's just kind of how we do it. But that's not the Bible's perspective on giving. It's not tipping, it's tithing. Now, the word tithe is a biblical word. Here's what it means, 10%. Okay, that's what it means. It means 10%. I had a guy one time that said to me, oh, pastor, man, this is how I tithe. I don't give to a church or anything like that. What I do is I go on Amazon and I buy a whole bunch of Christian books. That's how I tithe. I was like, bro, I love you. That's not tithing. That's shopping. Okay, that is shopping. That is not tithing. So what's tithing? Go back to the Old Testament book of Leviticus. It says a tithe, a tenth, 10%, of everything from the land, whether grain or the soil or fruit from the trees, belongs to the Lord. And it's holy to the Lord. This is where, Christians try to find loopholes. They're like, well, good news, I'm not an Old Testament Christian. I'm a New Testament Christian. Sweet. Hope you read it, because 10% is actually the starting point, and God wants us to be generous beyond that. That's up to you. He wants you to be cheerful. Somebody go, God wants me to be a cheerful giver, or I'm not happy about doing it. That's about your heart, right? What he says is here, 10% of everything belongs to the Lord. And it's set apart. Now, if you go to the New Testament, it's set apart for the purpose of the gospel message advancing, right? So you will give him 10% for the sake of the gospel advancing. And he does that. He fulfills his purpose through the church. And so, that's why you tithe to the church, so that the gospel message can continue. And so you bring a tenth, a 10%, and you give it for the sake of the gospel continuing. That's what it means to tithe. It's so significant in our heart and our mind. And it comes from having the right mindset. The right mindset. Now, when you give a tithe, technically, you're not giving it. You're actually just returning it, right? Because everything belongs to the Lord, and he's set apart the tithe for something special. And so if everything that you have belongs to God, it all comes from God, and he gives you everything to be a steward of, which means to be a good manager of, and it all belongs to him, then when he asks for 10% back, you're not actually giving it to him, you're just returning it to him. That's exactly what Dustin did this morning. Because right before the service, I went over and I gave him this $100 bill. Some of you had bad thoughts about me, didn't you? Now, if I was God, I would say, hey, I gave you $100 and all I'm asking for is $10 back and you can have 90. I'm not God. So I'm gonna go ahead and ask for all of it back. But I want you to look at it this way. When you obey what God has asked and expects in this area, that's when you are honoring him. You honor the Lord with your wealth. This is our key passage, right? With the first fruits of all your crops. Then your barns, there's the other mindset, will be filled to overflowing, and your vats will brim over with new wine. Listen, tithing is returning 10% to God. It's giving him your first and your best and letting him bless the rest. Now, what do I mean by that? I'm not saying that if you tithe, God's gonna make you healthy and wealthy and prosperous. We don't believe in that. I can explain that another time. What I'm saying is, if you will obey God in this and you give it to him, he will multiply it in ways for the sake of the kingdom that you could never imagine. Because it actually isn't yours and it isn't mine. It all belongs to him. And so when I do that, that is worship. And that's what makes my faith flourish, because I trust him in the middle of a drought, in the middle of a time of scarcity. If it all belongs to me and I consume it, I'm gonna be afraid there's not enough. But when it all belongs to God, and that's my answer to the question, who does it all really belong to? Then I give it, and he multiplies it. And he can do more than we could ever ask, think, or imagine with it. Listen, this is it. This is the principle that will change your life when it comes to your finances. It has changed my life. I did not always view my money this way. But when you have the bag mindset, your priorities are to live, lifestyle, save in case I ever want to retire, and give, tip along the way. And this probably represents a lot of how most of us live. The problem is, that's what leads to fear. God gave it, I consumed it. I don't know if there's enough of it. It's a scarcity mindset. When you choose to set down the bag and unlock the barn door, it completely changes the priority, guys. Giving goes first. Then you're preparing for tomorrow, and you live on the rest. That's what leads to freedom. And some of you are struggling with your faith because you're financially living in fear instead of freedom. And I want to invite you to step out of that today. I'm asking you, what's next for your story when it comes to finances? What's next? How will it be that you could find financial freedom?